Welcome back to the Running Wine Mom podcast. I'm your host, Samantha Cieslinski, aka the Running Wine Mom. Today, we're diving into a topic that every new parent faces, introducing solid foods to their baby. If you've ever felt overwhelmed about when to start, what to feed, or how to make mealtime less stressful, you are not alone. Today, we have a very special guest who's here to help us navigate these challenges with confidence and ease. Joining us today is Malina Malkani, a renowned pediatric registered dietitian, best-selling author, and single mom of three. With over 130,000 followers on Instagram and TikTok, Malina has become a trusted voice in infant and childhood nutrition. She's the author of Simple and Safe Baby-Led Weaning, and her upcoming book, which releases today, Safe and Simple Food Allergy Prevention, promises to be another invaluable resource for parents. Malina's mission is to help parents raise healthy, adventurous eaters while also tending to their own nutrition needs. Today, she's sharing her expertise on baby-led weaning, a feeding approach that encourages babies to self-feed with solid foods, helping them develop motor skills and an adventurous palate. We'll also discuss practical tips for managing picky eaters, including allergens, safely, and making mealtimes a positive experience for the whole family. So without further ado, let's welcome Malina to the show. Welcome.
Hello. What a lovely intro. Thank you so much. It's so nice to be here with you.
Yes, I am so excited. Baby-led weaning was something that I felt so passionate about with my kids. It was something we were so successful with, and I am so excited for you to talk all about it. Before we do that, we start each episode with our wine, and win of the week segment. This is where we share our favorite bottle of wine, bet about something that's been bothering us, and celebrate our recent victories. So grab a glass, take a deep breath, and let's get started. So what is your WINE of the week?
Well, is it okay if I share one that's not a wine, but it's more like a drink?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, last summer I spent a little bit of time in Italy and I fell madly in love with Aperol spritzes.
Oh, yes.
And then this summer I just got back from Maine visiting my brother, and they were making these things called spicy Aperols, which were like an Aperol spritz, but they had jalapeno and like all this flavor, and I was just completely enamored.
I definitely need to try that because sometimes the regular Aperol spritzes are a little bit too sweet for me, but the spicy would give it like a great one. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, I hadn't either. It was very exciting and like so refreshing in the Maine kind of crisp Maine air to have that bite. So it was
that's
fun.
awesome. I love that. So what is your WHINE of the week?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think we can probably all safely say at this point that we're ready to put all the talk of politics aside for a minute and talk about something else. So that's kind of my wine, and I'm really ready to do that. And by some, stroke of luck, this happens to be my pub day, so we can talk about food allergy prevention.
Yes, it is all over and done with. And yeah, no more politics. What is your win of the week?
Oh gosh, my win of the week is that so far it's been a really smooth transition back to school. You never know how it's going to go. I have 3 girls. They're in 2 different schools this year. And so far it's been a really great and smooth transition. So I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, this is our daughter's first year in any sort of daycare, preschool. So she's going 2 full days a week. And it's like nerve-wracking and exciting at the same time to have.
Yeah, big transition, right?
Yeah, it's a big,
you don't know how it's going to go.
And we feel like with our schedules, like we had everything down pat, and now it's such like a different change, and we're just constantly like my husband and I checking in with each other. Okay, well, like how are we supposed to manage this or that? And how do people even work like 9 to 5 jobs and get their kids to school? Like what? I don't know. It's so,
I know it's mayhem. And I'm not really sure how we get through any single day. And then we get to the end of it and we got through it. So
I know.
I can relate.
So I always like to ask my guests, what is one major challenge that you've overcome that has shaped your journey? And what is your proudest accomplishment?
Oh, wow. Gosh, yeah, I was thinking about this the other day because I was having some back pain. So when I was 25, I sustained an injury to my back. It was an L5S1 herniated disc. And at the time, it was really severe, and I lost all use of my left leg. I had foot drop. there was a lot of nerve damage, and I ended up having surgery on my back, and then got a staph infection in my spine. It was MRSA. We didn't know that it was MRSA at the time. That wasn't like a thing yet, but it was an infection that went into my spine, and so I had to wear a PICC line, which is something that goes in through your arm and then directly into your heart. It pumps antibiotics through your system 24 hours a day. So I wore that for 3 months, and it was, I was 25 years old. So I was young. I was very young, and it was sort of early to learn those hard lessons about the importance of health and the importance of self-care and taking time. I was dancing at the time. I was at a dance class, and I wasn't really good at listening to my body and listening to when I needed to rest and when I needed to maybe do some gentler exercise and maybe take care of myself a little bit more. And so a lot of times in our 20s, you can really sort of abuse your body and you just kind of get through it.
So true.
Right. Yeah. But I learned the hard way really early on, the importance of self-care and good nutrition. I remember my doctor at the time saying to me, he was scared. It was a terrible, really, really bad infection. And he came into my hospital room. I had a raging fever from the infection. And he said, any little thing you can do to support your immune system, good nutrition, getting enough sleep, keeping your stress levels at a lower level, anything we can do to keep your immune system robust and fighting for you, we need to do that right now. And it stuck in my mind. And so I changed careers not long after that to nutrition. I was, so it's really been something that's informed my life.
That's so interesting, because I was wondering how that, as I'd read that you had been in the performing arts, and then this is where, you kind of ended up. I'm like, oh, I wonder what sparked that, change. And
yeah, that was definitely part of it.
Yeah,
it's a weird change. It is and it isn't, right?
Right.
I mean, I think music, but primarily I was a singer, and I still sing here and there. That's what I was doing in Italy last summer, was touring with a group.
Cool.
But when I think about the two things that connect people, at least in my life, the most, they're food and music,
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
So true. Wow.
Sense.
Yeah. Okay. That makes sense.
My life makes sense in some ways. In some ways, it doesn't.
Oh, I love that. All right. So the Running Wine Mom, we talk a little fitness. What's your favorite way to stay active?
Yeah, well, I found Pilates after the back injury. It was the thing that really strengthening my core and really moving from a place of strength from, the inside column of my body was really what helped my back the most to prevent injury going forward and sort of overcome some of the pain. I recovered about 80% of the use of the muscles in my left leg, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Like you had asked me what, greatest accomplishment. I think probably my kids would feel to me like my greatest accomplishment, but I'm proud that I've overcome a lot physically from those injuries. So I love Pilates. I do really love yoga. And I like to cycle, but like I would just walk everywhere. I love to walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just saw like a clip from a podcast about the importance of walking after dinner, and how just like a 30-minute walk after dinner is really one of the most important things that we should be doing. And it's just such an underrated thing.
It's so easy.
It's right? So easy.
Yeah, it's free. There's a friend of mine who has type 1 diabetes, and he wears a continuous blood glucose monitoring device. So you can see what his blood sugars are doing at any given time. And it's fascinating to me because when we eat a meal and then walk right afterwards, it improves his blood sugar levels like right away.
I think that's what they were talking about, was about the blood sugar levels being so like, affected if you walk just right after a meal, which is something everybody can do.
Yeah.
And so how do you think maintaining your fitness routine contributes to your mental health?
Oh gosh. Well, I think probably at this point, I'm 40, I'll be 49 next month. And I think at this point, I probably work out more for my mental health and my stress levels.
Yeah.
I mean, the physical is so important too. And I'm not sure I could separate the two, but the mental health, but like the stress release, the happy endorphins,
Mm-hmm.
just the feel good hormones I experience after working out are so important to me at this point. I don't think I could separate them. And
Yeah.
I do some of my most, as a content creator, I think I do some of my most creative thinking when I'm just walking out there
Right.
or
Oh
cycling.
yeah. It's like therapy. Like you're just
Yeah.
talking to yourself. This morning I was feeling just like I just felt so bad. Like just didn't feel great. I don't know. It was just like one of those moods. So I took the kids up to our gym and I put them in the kids club and I'm like, I'm just going to do like a 10-minute workout. I don't even care. Just 10 I'm here. We're going to do it. And I was shocked at how much better, just like I felt like it was a reset. And I only
Yeah.
did 10 minutes. It doesn't have to be an hour or a day. And it's just so important for the movement because you think, oh, you just need to rest and not move your body. But a lot of times you need to move your body to get your mind moving as well.
Yeah. And I love, love, love what you just said, that you took the kids with you and you put them like they're, I feel like the role modeling aspect of that for your kids from such an early age is so powerful because what it shows them is just experientially, they're not thinking about it, but they're
Mm-mm.
experiencing. Mom was maybe a little testy,
Yeah.
and then she did 10 minutes and then she feels so much better. Like
Right.
that's an imprint, I think, which is
I hope
so
so. It's my
powerful.
goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Well done, mom.
Exactly. Let's talk a little bit about parenthood. Why don't you tell us about your family?
Yeah, so I am a single mom to three girls who are now 11, 13, and
Oh
15.
my gosh.
I can't believe
Oh,
it. I can't even believe it. They were all born within about 3.5 years of each other. And I co-parent with my ex-husband. We were divorced many, many years ago. So this has been a long time that we've been really nicely co-parenting these girls. And my home with them here is a total girl fest, which
oh
is
yeah, I'm sure.
it's just like very female energy heavy, which is wonderful. Um, yeah, it's a totally different ball of wax now, the tween and teen parenting than it was when they were toddlers and babies. But it's been nice because they were born so close to each other. They're like 20 months and 22 months apart.
That's
So we've
nice.
really kind of moved as a unit throughout the years, which is really nice
Yeah.
for me as a mom.
Oh, that's awesome. What do you
Yeah.
think that you were least prepared for in parenthood?
Oh gosh, I have to say the fighting between the kids. I don't have a sister. I have a brother who's 6 years older than me.
Okay.
So there's a sister thing that it blows my mind. They can be, you know, literally just shredding each other. And I'll say to them, like, my heart, you're breaking my heart. And 2 minutes later, they're the best of friends and they
Hmm.
have each other's backs. And they're like, Mom, what is your problem? Why are you so upset
Then
about
it like
it?
turns to you. Like, what is
Oh, it
your
does.
problem?
What does
We're
it matter
fine
to
over
you?
here.
Totally. Yeah, that's like 20 times a day.
Yeah.
It really triggers me because I don't understand it. I don't
Right.
have it's just not in my frame. So,
Yeah, I have a sister and I have a brother, but like my sister and I literally will be like at each other and then all of a sudden she'll be like, "Oh, do you like want to go out to dinner on Thursday?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure. What time?"
it's amazing. It is
Yeah.
amazing to me.
Yeah, not just you, it's all sisters. What do you think your parenting style is?
To think that it is that I set really clear boundaries for them, that I have a good strong structure, but that I give them a lot of autonomy within that
Mhm.
structure. And we're really lucky to live in a community that allows me to do that. We can walk everywhere in the
It's
town I live
awesome.
in. They can take their bikes. They can, it's safe. There's parks. We're really privileged to have that. And I'm grateful for it because it enables me to do that, at least with regard to their age now and what they want to do. Um,
Yeah.
like they want to, go somewhere with their friends or go into town, and they can do that here. But it kind of spreads into a lot of different areas. I really do try to give them freedom of choice, and that a lot of it really comes because I did so much work as a pediatric dietitian trying to figure out from a nutrition perspective how best to raise kids who would make healthy choices for themselves. And so that kind of authoritative choice within boundaries is a parenting style that kind of spread into other areas of parenting too.
Yeah. Oh my God, I'm sure it does. And what is one piece of advice that you would give to other parents?
You know what? I was thinking about this because it's tough to boil it down to one, right?
Yes.
It
So
is.
many things.
Oh, there's so many things. But like one thing that's actionable that I think parents can do that is possibly the most powerful thing, and it's not easy, but as a nutrition scientist and someone who really loves the data of nutrition and pediatric nutrition, when I look at the statistics around family meals and what the benefits of family meals are, not just with regard to nutrition for kids, but if you can, for example, they've done some really interesting research on dinners, family dinners. If you can get 3 family dinners a week, kids are more likely to do well in school. They're 35% less likely to have an eating disorder, less likely to engage in risky behaviors like alcohol and drugs and sex. They have better relationships with their parents. All the things that we want for our kids, not just they eat more vegetables. And yes, they do if you have family meals, but they make healthier choices. But so the nutrition stuff, but also the other stuff. So it's something we can do, and it doesn't have to be dinner, and it doesn't have to be perfect.
Right.
Right. It could be family breakfast. It could be brunch on the weekend if your work schedule doesn't allow for dinner. But just those touchstone moments with kids on a regular basis, sharing a meal, are so powerful.
I could not agree more. I grew up in a family dinner household, and my husband, they were more like, yeah, you can, come and go as you please. And it's something that he wants to instill. Like, I just think it's a normal thing, but he's very much like, no, we need to instill this in our kids. He kind of sees how, the conversations can be such an important part. You're talking to them and going back and forth with ideas, but then also like enjoying a meal together. And it's definitely something like I grew up with a huge Italian family. So it was like not even just our own family dinners, it was everybody is at the family dinners. But it's something that we are definitely, I could not agree more with that. I think it's a big thing.
That's so lovely. It's lovely that he wants to do that.
Yes.
That it was something missing for him. And that's lovely.
All right, let's get into more food, but this time for toddlers, not adults. We are going to get into the baby-led weaning fundamentals. So for those who do not know, could you explain what it is and maybe why it's become such a popular approach for introducing solids to babies?
Yeah, and family meals is such a great lead into it because it
Yeah.
has so much to do with that. So baby-led weaning is a method of starting babies on solid foods using finger foods from the family table that are of an appropriate size and texture for babies, as opposed to starting solids using purees that are fed parent-led and fed on a spoon. And I think possibly it's popular. I mean, it's really gained a lot of popularity in the last decade or so, maybe a little bit longer. But it's nothing new. It's been around for thousands of years. This kind of starting babies on complementary foods that are developmentally appropriate for them to eat. But again, it kind of weaves into that parenting style that I had mentioned before about having a structure and then trusting your child and giving them freedom and choice and autonomy to choose whether and how much to eat from the foods that you serve. And that structure could be, you as the parent, you're offering healthy foods, a variety of foods at regular intervals throughout the day. And then you let the baby choose and self-feed and decide whether and how much to eat.
Yeah. For me, the thing that I loved most about it was that we didn't have to make a whole separate meal for the babies. Like it actually was way easier to just feed them what we were feeding in the proper, serving sizes, which was something that I'm like, oh, this is way easier. I'm not I don't have to go buy all this separate stuff. And that was something really cool for it. What are some of the main benefits that you find in baby-led weaning, maybe that you've observed during your practice?
Well, it's funny, you just mentioned one of them. I think it saves parents a ton of time. I mean,
Yeah,
in terms of parents, a ton of time, ton of money too, because you're not either buying pre-made baby food or having to make something separate for the baby. Everyone's just eating the same thing. It's so much bandwidth you save. Um, but in terms of babies, one of the things that I really love about baby-led weaning, like it's not the only way to start solids, and we can talk about that. It's not even maybe the best way. It's an option, right?
hmm
But one of the things I love so much about it is that responsive feeding is built right into it. And by responsive feeding, that's really considered kind of the cornerstone of a really healthy feeding relationship, a strong, healthy feeding relationship with the best outcomes down the road from a pediatric nutrition perspective. And it's built right in because the baby is self-feeding. So you don't have to, decide whether and how much to eat for them. They're deciding
right.
how much and whether to eat. And responsive feeding is, in a nutshell, it's just basically responding to a baby's cues for hunger and fullness in a timely manner. So when a baby's self-feeding, that's just kind of built in, which is great. And it's,
Right.
it's so interesting to me because so in my private nutrition practice, when I get babies in the private practice, sometimes it's because there's a feeding related issue or like an oral motor delay or an undiagnosed food allergy that's making it difficult for them to eat. But often it's because the parents tried to decide what the appropriate amount and types of food were for the baby.
hmm
And so they don't let the baby do the baby's job, which is to trust their own innate cues for hunger and fullness and eat accordingly. So they start doing things like distract feeding or airplaning the food in or shoving in a piece of like a bite of food when the child is watching television or then starting to pressure the child to eat. And don't get me wrong, like I really understand this the stress and we're so programmed to nourish our babies, and thank goodness that's
hmm
from an evolutionary perspective a really smart thing that we care so much about what they eat. But when we trust them to meet their needs, they're really amazing at self-regulating their intake when we provide the food and let them figure out how much to eat, sort of get out of the way of ourselves. So that's really built right into baby-led weaning, which is a really wonderful aspect of it. Um, Also, baby-led weaning babies they just get exposed to more variety, just because they're eating from the
Yeah.
family table.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
So we did the 100 foods before one, and it was such like a cool thing to do. Like, not, I don't want to say competition because it's not I have a competition with myself, but like a
Yeah.
game to play. Okay, how many more do we have to get? Before year one, it exposed them to so many things that I wouldn't have normally thought to give them,
Yeah.
specifically, which was kind of cool to do.
Yeah, and it kind of keeps you on track, and it's kind of fun. Sometimes I think, there are very few foods babies between the ages of 6 and 12 months can't eat.
hmm
As long as you sometimes, yeah, they have to be modified often,
Right.
but that's pretty easy to do. And the more flavor, the more texture, the more of all of these different sort of characteristics of food they're exposed to early on, the more likely they are to be accepting of those foods down the
hmm
road. So that's just a wonderful
So
potential
true.
benefit of
Yeah.
baby-led weaning too. You can achieve it with purees too. But in my opinion, it takes a little more effort on parents.
So how about for parents who might be apprehensive about like letting their babies self-feed themselves because it is scary? But what are some common misconceptions about surrounding it that maybe might put parents at ease a little bit?
Yeah, that has kind of been the sort of the goal of all of my work is to reduce some of that stress and dispel some of those myths because there are a lot of them.
Yeah.
There really are. Probably the biggest one around baby-led weaning is fear of choking. That
hmm
baby-led weaning, that finger foods increase the risk of choking. And in writing my book, which comes out today, it is a baby-led weaning. It takes a baby-led weaning approach to food allergy prevention and starting solids. But in doing that, I did a complete literature review of all of these different myths and misconceptions. And when you look at the data, offering finger foods to babies, as long as parents are educated on safe food sizing and texture, it does not increase the risk of choking. In fact, some studies, and I'm thinking of one from 2017 in the journal Nutrients, found that the babies between, in the 6 to 9 month age range who were offered finger foods the least had the highest number of episodes of choking later on.
Wow.
So that, they need practice. They need to figure out where everything is in the mouth and what to do with it when you get a piece of food in the mouth.
Mm-hmm.
And early on in that 6 to 9-ish month time period, that gag reflex is super strong. And it's strong from an evolutionary perspective, I think, because it's protecting the airway. So we want to take advantage of that during the time when it is so strong and when it is so protective. Another myth is that babies need teeth in order to eat finger foods.
Yeah.
They don't.
Their gums or whatever,
They're so strong.
Strong.
Yeah. And it's good for them to sort of mash foods down like that with their gums. It's going to be a while before they get their molars. And so that's okay. We don't need to wait for that. And then another one is that they won't get enough nutrients if they are self-feeding. And there have been a bunch of different studies that have looked at this, maybe at different earlier phases of the starting solids process. Maybe they get a few fewer nutrients with baby-led weaning than spoon feeding between like 6 and 9 months. But down the road, a few months or weeks even later, it all evens out. And so really nutrient-wise, that's not, we need to be talking about key nutrients in general, no matter whether babies are spoon-fed or fed via finger foods. Everybody needs that education, but baby-led weaning doesn't mean that you're going to get fewer nutrients into your baby in general.
So what are some of your favorite first foods for baby-led weaning?
Oh gosh, well, I love things that are nutrient dense, naturally squishy, because texture is one of the most important ways to reduce choking risk for babies. And then also that are easy for baby to self-feed. And when they're starting solids, they're gonna be using a palmar grasp around 6 months. So you want to offer like a stick-shaped food so that part of it is sticking out of the fist and they can access that. So something like a wedge of avocado that's ripe and squishy, a wedge of banana, a steamed or roasted stick of sweet potato. Those are really great early food options. There's a lot. There's many, many to choose from. I think in my first book called Simple and Safe Baby-Led Weaning, this one, I think I put like 25 in there options. Because a lot of parents get stuck on trying to find that perfect first food.
Right.
And I think it's more helpful to think about it as a spectrum or you have like a collection of good early foods.
Yeah.
But I will say, in writing this book and in thinking so much more about food allergy prevention, it's important for parents not to get stuck on, other foods when they're establishing feeding and delaying the start of introducing allergens. We need to start getting those allergens in really, really quickly once starting solids has begun. So as soon as you've established feeding, you've given maybe some oatmeal, maybe some sweet potato, maybe some avocado. Once you've established that the baby is eating, things are going pretty well, that's when it's time to start introducing allergens.
And what is your best advice for introducing allergens safely? Because that's something else that people are, parents are very afraid of.
They are.
How does that kind of align in with baby-led weaning?
Yes. So much to say on this topic, but I'll bottom line it. Offering allergenic foods early and often and consistently helps reduce the risk of food allergies. And food allergies are really hard on families. They're expensive. They're stressful. They can really limit what the child's diet looks like down the road. So if we can prevent them, it's definitely worth it to do so. And the cool thing is we really do have this evidence-based, very effective way of reducing the risk of food allergies, but it's not being widely implemented. And fear is one of the reasons why. Fear of an allergic reaction, fear of introducing foods that, we get 15, 20 years ago, pediatricians were saying to avoid until babies were
Right.
1, 2, and 3 years old. So the confusion, it makes sense that there's confusion around it. But updated new research, new infant feeding guidelines really do point to the importance of offering allergenic foods around 6 months, starting at around 6 months, once babies have started foods and are developmentally ready. One thing that I find that really comforts parents is to hear that severe reactions are extremely uncommon during
Mhm.
infancy. So if a baby is going to be allergic, it's highly, highly, highly unlikely that there's going to be any kind of a severe reaction. You might see hives, you might see vomiting. Those are the two most common reactions in babies, but so much better to know that early on
Right.
when the baby is so much more likely to have a mild reaction than to find out, than to delay introduction to find out later when the risk of a severe reaction is so much higher and when they may not be with you when they
Right.
try those foods for the first time. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And then just to answer your question about how to introduce them.
Yeah.
So, peanut and egg are the two foods that we know the most about.
Mhm.
And there's really awesome research, particularly about peanut. Offering peanut 2 to 3 times a week in high-risk babies starting at around 6 months of age reduces the risk of peanut allergy by 86%,
Wow.
which is amazing. But
Yeah.
like you mentioned, we need to modify
Right.
peanuts, particularly because whole nuts are choking hazard.
Right.
Globs of peanut butter could block an airway. So you can thin out peanut butter with a little bit of breast milk or formula. You could spread a little bit on like a thin layer of toast if you want to do that. You could mix it into oatmeal. You could serve it on a preloaded spoon and you just hand the spoon over to baby. So there's lots
Mhm.
of different ways to do it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So in your book, that is one of the that is the main topic of it. How what kind of made you decide to write specifically about that? And can you tell the listeners about what they can find in this book?
Yeah. Yeah. So back in 2020, I came out with this book
Mhm.
on Simple and Safe. It's called Simple and Safe Baby-Led Weaning. And I wanted to create a one-stop kind of resource where because there's so much noise and they're like we've talked about, so many myths and misconceptions about infant feeding. And sometimes you just want to sit down with one resource,
Mhm.
evidence-based, and get what you need and go feed your kid. So I wrote that in 2020. And one of the sort of asks that I got from my community at Healthy Mom, Healthy Kids on Instagram was, I want more about food allergy prevention and introducing allergens, and I want recipes and meal plans so that I can make
Okay.
it actionable.
Cool.
And the more that I've learned about food allergy prevention in the 4 years since then is that we need to make food allergy prevention part of the conversation around starting solids
Mhm.
because the window of opportunity when food allergy prevention is the most protective is so short. I mean, you have the baby and then it's time to start solids and then it goes so quickly.
Right.
And by the time the baby is a year old, then you've really missed that window of opportunity. I'll give you another one that just absolutely blows my mind. For every month that we wait to introduce peanut after 6 months, the potential protective effect is reduced by, in some cases, 30% per month.
Wow. Oh my gosh, a month.
Right? So, like, we got to get the show on the road. So
Mhm.
that's why when I wrote this, and my hope with this is that this will be the one-stop shop. It is a complete guide to baby-led feeding. So it has everything about baby-led weaning, but it also has a complete, like a 9-day allergen introduction plan. It tells you
Oh,
exactly how to introduce each allergen. Then it's got 8 weeks of meal plans and 80 recipes
that's
that have
amazing.
multiple allergens. Because I think the piece that people forget, or at least that gets kind of overwhelming, is that once you've introduced an allergen, you got to keep it in the diet
Mhm.
going forward. Because our immune systems don't like it when we introduce an allergen and then think, oh, the baby didn't react, so my job's done. I'm not going to introduce it again. We need to maintain the tolerance.
Okay.
So my hope was to kind of do all the thinking and planning for parents in recipes like you just mentioned, where you just make one meal, you can feed it to the entire family. I tested all the recipes on my girls, who are like the most
Yeah.
honest and brutal recipe
There you
testers.
go. That is great. I love that.
Yeah, they were very, very honest with me. Um, and then I did the food photography myself. So
Oh,
I
cool.
could show people, here's how you would modify or cut this or prepare it for the baby, and here's how you could serve it to you and your any other, children that you have who are older. So one meal, you don't have to think about allergens. I'll do all the thinking and
That's amazing.
planning for you all in one
Yeah.
book.
I'm just thinking, like, I don't even know if there's anything like that out there right now. I mean, I know when I was looking into it, I looked for, I did like a random webinar on introducing allergens, but that was really all that I could find. And it's something that parents are so anxious about, and to have something right in front of you that is, it's going to be so wonderful. A wonderful
Yeah.
tool. That is awesome. So in addition to your books, you have some online courses. What do these courses offer, and how can they help parents?
Yeah. So after 2020, when Simple and Safe Baby Led Weaning came out, I created an online course in response to the asks that I was getting about
That's
meal plans and recipes. And I think people have different learning styles too. Some people do better. They want to be taught via video. They want smaller chunks of information that they can just sort of absorb orally or visually. So I did create it's called Simple and Safe Baby Led or Safe and Simple Baby Led Feeding. And that course can be accessed at babyledfeedingcourse.com. And it's basically me teaching you everything that's in here.
just in a
uh,
different way.
yeah, just in a different way. And there is an 8-week meal plan with recipes in that
Oh,
resource
cool.
as well. And it's like a PDF that you can then print out. Um, so that's available if that's the type of learner that you are. If you go to Solve Picky Eating, that's another course for kids really ages 2 through 8.
Okay.
And I kind of poured my brain into um, the set of sort of creating a healthy family feeding dynamic that would help reduce the likelihood of picky eating, but also manage it if you're finding that your kid is picky and sort of leaning toward more picky behaviors. It's not so much for the more extreme picky eater, although it does have a tool in that course that can help you determine if your child, because picky eating is kind of on a spectrum, right?
Right.
We've got our extreme picky eaters on one side, and they might be dealing with an oral motor delay or a sensory issue or something that really needs to be addressed before some of the more behavioral fixes for your more garden variety. Picky eating will be
Hmm.
helpful. This stuff will be helpful. The more garden variety stuff will be helpful eventually, but we really do need to address the more pressing issue first. So solve picky eating can help you determine if that's the case for your
Right.
child, but it'll also just give you a whole set of tools that you can try to make the feeding dynamic in your family less stressful,
Yeah.
um, and healthier for everybody.
Yeah, that's what my daughter right now is a little bit more picky with eating, where she's like, not, we offer her all of this stuff, but she'll sometimes eat it, she sometimes won't. And I'm trying not to be you need to finish your meal before you get off of the chair, but also I'm like, okay, you haven't eaten anything today. What are we supposed to do about this?
Oh, it's so hard, that
Yeah.
space. I know. I
It is.
know.
And meanwhile, my son will literally sit for like an hour and just eat and eat and eat and eat
Isn't
anything we
it
put in front of him.
incredible? I know how different they can be, even with the same parenting style,
Hmm.
same family structure.
Yeah,
Um, Kids really are each so different.
they are.
Yeah, and that's part of how I came to um, understand how important these set of tools was. As my oldest was really challenging in her
Hmm.
toddler years with regard to picky eating, so I kind of cut
Yeah.
my teeth on a tricky one, and then my next two are a lot easier.
Yeah. So, as a mom and a nutrition expert, what do you think the best piece of advice maybe that you've received about feeding children, or that you found about feeding children and maybe how it's impacted either your approach or your mindset towards all of the information that you share with everyone.
Yeah, that's so wonderful, and I've kind of alluded to it a few times, but it will be nice to name it here for everybody. Um, I've talked a lot about the different role, the parent's role and the child's role in the feeding relationship. That actually was coined by someone named Ellen Satter, who is a family feeding guru. She's an RD, but just really a pioneer in the pediatric nutrition space. And she coined this idea or concept called the division of responsibility between parents and kids. And in this sort of concept, the parent's role is to decide the what, when, and where of meals. And then we leave it to our children to decide whether and how much to eat. And it's really, really simple to say it.
Yeah.
A lot more difficult to implement it. But when we do, especially early on, so many of the issues that people then I tend to see in my private practice tend to be sort of circumvented and or fall away once we get really firm on what our rules are in the feeding relationship. And I found it early on in my parenting journey, and it really, really changed the dynamic for me and my oldest daughter. Um, and so I talk about it a lot in my private practice. There's actually an entire institute now
Oh,
that's sort of
cool.
founded on this principle and on Ellen Satter's work.
Yeah.
But when we flip the roles, when the child starts sort of deciding what's going to be served and when it's going to be served and where, and when the parent starts trying to decide whether and how much the child should eat, that's when we start to get into some of the different behaviors around food that are a lot harder to unwind down the road. So my goal is to always help parents, just to empower them to really have a strong, healthy, effective family feeding dynamic that can prevent some of the stuff that I see in my private practice. And this is one.
I love that. I will have to look into her because that whole approach is very aligns with what I want for for our family as well. So kind of looking ahead, what are your hopes for the future of infant and toddler nutrition? What are some things that you hope to see over the next few years or decade?
Well, mainly, I mean, kind of my why. I was telling somebody about this the other day. I had a family in my private practice whose son he was 12 months old. He had just been diagnosed with multiple food allergies.
Mm,
And this was a high risk baby. He had severe eczema. Severe eczema is the strongest risk factor for food allergies.
okay.
And at no point in his whole life and all the very many, many, many pediatrician visits he had and visits he had with his members of his healthcare team, at no point did anyone mention to the family the importance of early allergen introduction and food allergy prevention, and particularly for this baby and for any baby with severe eczema, but really for all, it needs to be a part
Hmm.
of the conversation for all babies,
Right.
because a quarter of babies who end up with food allergies never had eczema
Hmm.
to begin with. So there's a lot,
Yeah.
we don't really know what causes food allergies, but it's probably quite multifactorial. But that being said, she just had tears just, streaming down her face and asking me, why didn't anyone say anything to me earlier on? And what we could have maybe avoided,
Yeah.
maybe. It's not a guarantee, but we maybe could have avoided it. So that's kind of my why, is to help as many families as I can avoid having, the stress and the expense and the difficulty and the restrictiveness of having to deal with food allergies. And we can make
Hmm.
such a big difference. That's what my hope is with this book,
Yay.
and with my courses and with my blog and with my work on Healthy Mom, Healthy Kids on Instagram, is to spread the importance of early allergen introduction and then keeping those allergens in the diet consistently going forward.
Well, I am so appreciative of people who are doing what you're doing. I just am thinking back as you're talking about all of that to bringing my kids to the pediatrician and not even really getting a set, not even talking about allergens, but just when do you start feeding your baby? Is it half of my friends, it was 4 months, the other half, it was 6 months. And I really had to do the research on my own of when do I want to start feeding my baby? How do I want to start feeding my baby? Nobody gave me any advice on allergens. It was all stuff that I had to research on my own. It was just kind of like, just give them, baby food or whatever it is. And the whole basis of our survival is through nutrition. And it's just absolutely wild that more pediatricians aren't versed in finding signs of allergy issues or nutrition with kids. So I am so appreciative of all that you do and all of the families that you will help with this and give just relief. Like, I think that's the biggest thing. You have this child and, most of us are postpartum still at 6 months, trying to figure out our hormones, let alone now you're trying to keep this child alive with solid foods. You've just figured out the, formula or breastfeeding. And now you're like, wait, I have to introduce more stuff. What is happening?
Yeah. You're so right about that. And you're probably still, if not sleep deprived currently, like, sort of recovering from having been sleep deprived for so long. It's really hard.
It's hard. And literally anything that can be just an easy, readable, this is what you have. Like, you just as a mom want someone to tell you what to do and you want the best advice for it. And, your parents might not know all of the answers. So like, where else are you going to go? And that's the one thing I love about this day and age. There is information like oversaturation, but if you're looking, there is you'll get an expert in something that you're looking for. So I love that.
Yeah. It's just a matter of finding the credentialed, the right credentialed person.
Yeah. You got to get the credentials. There's lots of, so besides your book that, is out today, what is your next project or goal that you have?
Oh my gosh.
Or are you just soaking this in right now?
Samantha, I have not looked beyond the launch of this book.
Yeah. It's okay. That's all right. We're living in the present. That's the most important thing.
Yeah. But you know what? Thank you for bringing that up, because now I need to think about it. The book is out. I've got to think about what's next.
Yeah. That's all right. Listen, you are, so you have 2 wonderful books, which most people can't say that they have. So, and just helping families is amazing. Well, you've given us so much information. Is there anything that we missed or maybe that we haven't covered that you'd like to touch on before we kind of wrap it up?
I guess 2 things. One, if you are a new parent or if you are expecting a baby or if you just had a baby, start the conversations with your pediatrician or your healthcare team early on about starting solids and about your baby's level of risk for food allergies. Just start the process early on, because it does come up so much more quickly than I ever expected, than anyone ever expects. And you want to be prepared. That's what I hope this book will be for people. If you want to find the book, you can go to foodallergypreventionbook.com.
Okay.
And you can sample some of the recipes there, see some of the recipe photos, learn a little bit more about the book. It's available everywhere. And then I post daily nutrition and wellness tips almost every day on my Instagram at Healthy Mom, Healthy Kids. And I love taking kind of deeper dives into different pediatric nutrition topics on my blog, which you can find at malinamalkani.com.
And I will link all of that. The one thing that when I was looking at your Instagram recently, the one thing that I thought was really cool, the reel that you posted, was the pouch, the pouch dots, where you put them onto the wax paper, I think it was, and then put them into the freezer and the kids can eat them. I think I'm going to do that with Mike, even though they're out of that phase, but like, it's just such an easy thing to do. And they probably I love it. The yogurt ones, they think it's a
Yeah.
little treat. So I'm definitely going to try
Definitely. Oh,
that.
good. I'm so glad. Yeah, that little and when it's hot, it's so cooling to do that.
Yeah.
They can kind of manipulate it really easily. And one person had asked me, isn't that a dangerous shape for the baby because it's round,
Hmm.
kind of shaped like a windpipe? And yes, but those melt within seconds in the mouth, so they really
Yeah.
are quite safe.
That's awesome. I'll
Yeah.
have to let you know how it goes because I'm sure I'll be like, oh, we have a new
Yeah.
treat. Anything to get them their fruits and vegetables, which they do normally love, but it's just offering it in different ways is something that I'm always looking for.
Variety is
Yeah.
key, for sure.
All right. So that's going to bring us to the end of another episode of The Running Wine Mom. A big thank you to Malina for joining us and sharing her wealth of knowledge about baby-led weaning and child nutrition and food allergies for children. I know I've learned so much, and I hope everyone has as well. Remember, if you're a parent who's about to start the journey of introducing solids, or if you're dealing with picky eaters and mealtime struggles, you are not alone. And there are proven strategies that can make a world of difference. Make sure to check out Malina's book, Simple and Safe Baby-Led Weaning, and the book today that came out. If you want to give a little shout out to that again.
Yes, Safe and Simple Food Allergy Prevention, and you can find it at foodallergypreventionbook.com.
Awesome. Yes, so excited for you. And as always, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider subscribing, leaving a review, and sharing it. You can follow me on Instagram at the running wine mom _ And Malina, can you remind the listeners one more time where they can find you?
Yes, you can always find me on Instagram at healthy.mom.healthy.kids or on my blog at malinamalkani.com.
Awesome. And I will again link all of that. Thank you so much for joining us today. Remember, you are strong, you are capable, and you are all amazing. Until next time, keep running, keep sipping, and keep embracing the joy of motherhood. Cheers. And I will be back next Tuesday.